What's shaking, everybody? My name is Ross Mandell, coming to you live from Scott Woolley Studios in Delray Beach, Florida. What a treat I have for you guys today. Today, you and I are going to learn something very, very important that could affect and change your life. He's a fascinating guy with a real pretty crazy story. I didn't just let my team examine Dr. Adi Jaffe out in California, but I personally got ensconced in his story because of firstly, the drama, the entertainment, the craziness, but then he has some brilliant ideology or philosophy as it pertains to recovery. And as you know, I have been entrenched in what we call the program since 1990. And we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things today. So I just want to introduce to you all Dr. Adi Jaffe. What's shaking, my brother?
Me on, Russ. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Thank you for that intro. Really, really excited for this interview.
It's just my privilege, honestly. The first question my team came up with, but I also believe it's something that we could jump into. Typically, I want to roll back the clock and get to your story. I like to create sort of like a timeline, but
Sure.
you're challenging one of the most deeply held beliefs in recovery, that abstinence is the only path. And, we chatted about this off camera, and I just love what you had to say about that. So I would like you to share with the audience, with the public, with so many people that need to hear. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy and how you came about it, and then we're going to go back to the beginning.
Yeah, and if it's okay, I'll start with how I came about it. So I was addicted to meth pretty badly for about 6, 7 years of my life. That's
Crystal
that's a
meth.
drug that took
Crystal
crystal
meth.
meth. That's a drug that took me down. I'm about 165, 164 pounds talking to you right here. I was 124 pounds,
Oh, my God.
skin and bones, right? And we'll talk about what that got to my life looking like, but I'll pause there for a second and say I started finding my own way out. I went back to school. I served time. We'll talk about all those pieces. But when I got out, I was researching addiction. I really wanted to figure out what the heck happened, right? Like my dad was a doctor. My mom was a human resource manager in a bank, upper middle class.
Right.
I was not supposed to end up in that place. And yet I went deep down. When I got arrested, I had a gun, I had a sawed-off shotgun under the car. Like it was exactly what you see in the movies.
Is that
If like
wrong?
if you watch,
Is that wrong?
what's that?
Is that
Is that
wrong?
wrong? I mean, it took a lot of interesting choices along the way to get to that place. And so I really went to research what happened to me. Now I was fully sober for about 3 years during that process, and I just want to make that really clear. I have a lot of appreciation for the program and a lot of other things that it got me. Now I was studying at UCLA, getting my PhD, studying psychology, neuroscience, all these other things. And then what dawned on me, and I was shocked by this, Ross. Like when I first heard the stat that I'm about to give you, it almost floored me. I almost gave up hope. Over 90% of people who need addiction help, the number now is closer to 95, 96% of people who need addiction help do not ever get professional help.
Correct.
That does not happen in any other field, Ross.
I understand.
So in medical fields like, around cancer and diabetes, somewhere between 75 and 80, 85% of people who are told they have a condition go get medical help for it. 75 to 85. Even in depression, it's 70% or so. Anxiety, the same, right? 70, 65%. In addiction, it's just around 5% of people get help. And so I asked myself a question. I was doing well by this point, right? I was back in school. My life was back together. Everything felt manageable for the first time, honestly, since I was 15 years old, probably,
That's a
right?
big word. That's a big word, manageable.
Yeah, and I was at 30 now. Like I was 30 years old,
I
and so
understand.
so I went, well, what the hell's wrong? Why is this happening? And I literally didn't know the answer. So I did a study at UCLA, like a good nerd and an academic. I went and did a study. It was a year and a half long, longitudinal study. We recruited people who knew they needed help for addiction. And then over a year and a half, we followed up with them. We said, every 6 months, did you get help? Did you not get help? If you did, how did you find it? What did you do? If you did not, what happened? The vast majority of people had not enrolled in help. Like 75, 80% of people never got professional help. And these are people who were looking. That's how they got in the study. And when we asked why, here are the four main reasons that we found. And they won't sound unfamiliar, but one of them is the one that's shocking that you want us to refer to. Number one, cost. An average treatment episode is over $10,000. Now, you and I are in a pretty privileged situation in our lives. For most people, $10,000 is just too expensive. Number two, logistics. You know, I do this, I do a lot of trainings for professional now, and I'll stand in a room with two, three, 400 people, and I'll say, look, who here in the room right now has 15, $20,000 they can give me and then can go away with me for 30 to 60 days,
Right.
and I
Right.
promise I will transform your life in 60 days. It will be so much better on the other end. Who's in? And maybe one or two people out of a room of 400 people raise their hand because we all have commitments. We all have a life. You know, we're talking about single mothers, people who are employed. You can't take 30 to 60 days, let alone 90 off of your life.
Also,
So,
there's an element of self importance. Like I was like, I can't go away for 28 days. Are you out of your mind? I'm very important.
exactly.
And meanwhile,
Everybody
it's like a
needs me.
joke. Right.
100%.
It's
But look,
comedy.
imagine being a single mother, right? Like,
I
what
get
do
I
we do with the kids
understand.
for 30?
I get
So,
it.
cost and logistics were the number one, number two. The third one was shame, which is why my TED talk, Fuck Shame, is kind of the thing that ended up becoming the biggest piece out of that.
I became a
Walking,
big fan as soon as I watched your TED Talks, and my team was urging me to watch it for 2 weeks, and I waited till last
yeah.
night, and I
Well,
don't know. I feel like God told me to watch it, and
mm,
it affected me. I want you to know that, and I say this, on camera because I think everybody should owe it to themselves to watch your TED Talks at UCLA. We'll talk about at the end how everybody can
yeah,
find you.
yeah, sure,
But
sure.
I think shame is one of the single most important sort of elements in recovery.
Yeah,
Because I have no shame anymore. But I had so much
exactly. Right.
shame when I got
Oof, so
started.
much,
Holy
so much.
moly. I didn't even
And
understand the concept.
And strangely, it goes along with that other self-importance piece, right? Like
Right.
we create this facade of self-importance because we feel so terribly about who we are. So shame was the third. And then Ross, the fourth one was abstinence.
Oof.
50 to 60% of participants said to me, look, I know I need help, but I'm not ready to commit to quitting. And you and I know the program well. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop. So the only requirement ended up being a non starter for
Correct.
60% of the people who needed help. So I sat back and I thought to myself, and I said, look, I want to help people. That's why I'm on this side of things now. Like I have to pay it forward. I got, I'll call it lucky. I did the work, whatever. It was all in one. I had this emotional and social support from my family.
You're a very
I want to
special.
help
You're also
people.
a very special guy. You have a great mind. You have a great persona. But during this period of time when you had these sort of realizations, correct? Just correct me if I'm wrong. You were already sort of sober. You were abstinent. You were in the program. Was that fair to say, or not really?
I was sober. Yeah, I was sober for 3 years. It was actually this path of discovery that had me really starting to question
To
things.
examine it. I got
Now,
it.
yeah, yeah. Now I'm gonna I'm going to divulge facts here that are really, really critical to my story that I haven't really shared publicly many, many times because I feel how important this part is to the conversation. I thought about this for 6 to 12 months, man. It was
I get it.
scary
I get it.
because I got my life back in order and I talked to my sponsor, I talked to my parents, I talked to my sister, I talked to my girlfriend and my friends at the time. And I said, look, I'm learning a lot about recovery. I'm learning a lot about psychology and treatment. Before I'm willing to go out there, this is 2005. I wrote my book in 2018. Before I'm willing
Wow.
to go out there,
Wow. Okay.
I don't, I'm going to run the test on myself. And it's everybody knows it as the AA experiment, right? That's kind of what it's called within the rooms.
Correct.
And I said, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in psychology is the path of self-improvement, which is what you get through program participation and involvement and engagement, is a key. You cannot do what I'm about to talk about without a constant commitment to self improvement. This is not like a, hey, go have a drink and everything will be fine. This is not what I'm saying at all. But I said to myself, if people are not going in because of logistics, because of shame, because of cost, and because of abstinence, how do we create a program of recovery that lets anybody come in? And then we do the work. Now I'm going to fast forward real fast because now that was 2005, 2006 when I started thinking about it. I just wrote my second book. Some of the best stories that I have from the thousands of people I help by now are people who came in because they weren't ready for abstinence, did the work, experimented up and down, tried to control, didn't, and then found abstinence. So I have nothing against abstinence at all.
Correct.
But what I want to do is I want to create a system that allows anybody who wants self change to come in. And I want to tell one story. It's actually in the book, in my latest book, but I still keep in touch with this woman. She lets me use her name because she really feels strongly about the work we did together. Her name's Aaliyah, which is her real name, and it's in the book. But you know what, man? It took her 3 months, 4 months to hear the right message in the right room at the right time before she was willing to actually stop using, right?
Ah,
The
okay.
last the last time, because all my programs are virtual, the last time she was at her dealer's house with headphones in, attending one of my groups. And so she heard something in the middle and she left the dealer's house without scoring. That was 4 or 5 years ago. She's been sober since, had her kids. Like, I think when we lift, you talk about limiting beliefs all the time.
Yes.
When we lift the belief that somebody has to be ready and willing to be abstinent the moment they walk in, and instead we welcome the person in and we say, look, your life is obviously not working out the way you want it to, right? DUI, jail, your wife is about to divorce you, you blacked out and hurt yourself, whatever it is, right? We all the stories. Come on in. Let's figure out what needs to change. And let's put a pin in whether you need to be abstinent for the rest of your life or not. Let's just start doing some work. What I found out is a lot of people are willing to engage with that kind of a message. And I want to help people find their best version of themselves. If that means abstinence, by all means. If it doesn't, I want to at least leave the door open for them so they don't run away.
I love it. And I think that, I was interviewed about, I think, 15, 16 years ago. And I have a video of me. I was interviewed. It was somebody who was in the Wall Street world, very important. And they said, you were around since the early 80s. You funded
Yeah.
cellular, the internet, the personal computer, video, this, that, the other thing. You're part of all of that. If you had to share with us right now, what would you consider the most important technology of the 20th century? And I was thinking for a second, and then maybe God, maybe something in my brain. I said the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's changed tens
Mm,
of millions of lives, and those people are contributing to everything, every walk of life. I've been to meetings in Washington with a sitting president. Believe it or not,
wow.
that sort of a thing during the course of my life, my recovery. I've taken United States senators through recovery early on, and
Mm,
and like most technologies, they that are accepted, that are utilized at work,
yeah.
over time, generally they're improved. I always think about cellular technology. I'll never forget, I was funding one of the first cellular companies in 1984 or 85, right around there. Could be 83, I think 84. And they said, one day you'll be able to talk to somebody and look at them at the same time. And we were like, what? And
Yeah.
remember this, there was no cell phones when I started my journey on Wall
Yeah.
Street. We didn't have any of these things. There's no Google. I try to talk to my kids about it, and they're like, look at me like that, like you're a dope, you know. But
Back in my day.
yeah, it's a crazy story because technology just advances are constantly being made, and why not
Amen.
in the 12 steps? So I lend a tremendous amount of credence, and my team examined your story, and they just somehow felt it was right for this moment for me at this time. And so I'm so privileged to have you. And I love what you just said. It shouldn't be a non-negotiable condition, in my opinion. Let's get him in here, and maybe we can help him. Right? I mean, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. And
Yeah. And Ross, like, first of all, I appreciate your candor on this. And the shame component of what we deal with, which is big for a lot of people who struggle with mental health broadly, but also with this dual
Correct.
diagnosis, right? Like my belief, and again, I talk about this in the book, the addiction stuff comes because something else isn't working. There's something under the surface that is making us have this void. They talk about that in the program all the time. It's true. You
100%.
have to figure out what that is. The thing is, you're going to have to fix that void, period, point blank in your life if you want to move forward. And that is the negative beliefs. It is the trauma that you had earlier on. It is the stories, right? I grew up in a very specific kind of household, and the stories about what success looks like and what making it looks like were very specific, and they were given as the truths. I actually would love to kind of throw this back to you. Obviously you were incredibly successful in many, many ways, um, even before your release, right? Like you experienced massive success before
While I
everything
was
that happened with
using
the media.
very actively as well.
Yeah,
I was essentially a junkie that discovered Wall Street because I just really wanted to be a player in New York nightlife. And that was a way for me to get money. It costs a lot of money to be a player, and it was very important to me. Appearances
yeah,
and experiences,
yeah.
I lived a bucket
Mm,
list kind of life because
yeah, you have.
I had access always to money and to get money. And that's what I was trained to do. And I was really good at it. And addicts are very cunning and very manipulative. And, I used my addiction as a superpower. I did
Yeah,
spend 7 years in therapy after I was sober 1 year, clean, sober, read through the steps, sponsorship, big book
yeah,
study
yeah.
programs, all these kind of things. And sponsees, which really helping other people really was something that really accelerated my recovery. But I went to a psychiatrist his name was Dr. Arthur Knauert. He passed away the week before I got married, but back in '98. He was credited as being the father of the study of addiction. And he was actually a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon.
Yeah.
And one day he walked out of the operating room and realized that he could do so much more with his mind than he could do with his
Mm,
hands. And so he went back to school and became a psychiatrist. And
wow.
his practice was almost 98% dealing with recovering addicts and alcoholics that felt dissatisfied. You see, the program helps you with a lot of stuff, but basically, it says right in the book, it's a daily solution.
Yeah, yeah,
They can't fix you. That's something that you have to do. And you just talked about doing the work and all these different things, which
yeah.
encompasses really more than any pedestrian can understand, really.
Well,
But
it's
for us,
hard.
it's
It's
a
hard to
simple
conceive what that really means.
right. For us, it's a simple conversation. We talk in a different level. We understand each other like that. But
Yeah.
I was dissatisfied just being clean and sober, practicing these principles in all my affairs. I really wanted more, and it turns out I was angry and I was damaged and
Mm,
deep on the inside, and I was still loaded with shame. And funny thing you brought up shame because I'm dealing with it right now with a couple of people I'm helping,
yeah.
and even 25 years later, and I'm in recovery, and I'm with people that are in recovery, some 10, 20 years. And
Sure.
I talk about we have a mental disease. We have a disease that's centered in the middle of our brain. And I see they get irked by that statement. They don't want to say
Mm,
that they have a mental disease. They're just alcoholic. They're an addict. They don't use. They're sober. They have good lives. And they still have shame just being associated, like you meant, with the idea of they have a mental disorder of some type. So
sure.
I purposely, I can't talk like that around people that I really want to help because
Mm,
that's a turnoff to them. What do you mean? I have a drug problem. I have an
yeah.
alcohol problem. I drink a little too much. I just want to, dry up for a little bit. That was my story. But it was like a complete lie, but it seemed truthful to me at the time. So
Yeah.
let's
And
dial the clock back. I want to get to your
okay.
story because you have,
Yeah. Sure.
in the words of Stephanie, you have a crazy story, bro. And
It's pretty crazy.
so tell us where you were born, when you were born, how old you are. I want to hear everything.
Yeah. I was born in Israel, which, depending on who you say that to, is a controversial statement
Became
by
a hot
itself
topic now.
nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot
But
of
I was
people
born
just
in
turned this
Israel.
off.
I know, seriously. Lived in the same apartment all the way from birth until I was 14 years old, same
Where in Israel?
neighborhood.
Where in Israel?
Uh, northern Tel Aviv in a neighborhood called Bavli, and it's
Okay.
like just to give people a sense of what it is, because I there are a few neighborhoods like that in the States that I've been to. But think to yourself about 12 streets that have a bunch of apartment buildings in them, a town center that had a theater and a couple of little restaurants and a coffee shop and a toy store. That was my life for 14 years. That's where we played hide and seek. That's where we went to the park. That's like my life was there until I was 14 years old. We traveled a little bit, mostly to like Europe, but most of my life was right there. My school was There was a parking lot for my apartment building, and on the other side was my school. I mean, it took me 3 minutes to walk to school every morning. That was the world I was in. And then when I was 14 years old, my dad, after he was a physician, a maternal fetal medicine OBGYN, he got a job proposal in the States from a hospital that he had visited before. The guy wanted him to come work for him.
And your parents
Originally,
were
it was supposed to
married.
be
Your parents you grew in a
my
household with two
parents.
married parents.
My parents were married. It was a little more complex than that. Well, I'll tell a little story in a moment. But so at literally 13 and some, my parents come to us and like, hey, we think we're going to move to America for a few years. What do you guys think? Now, I don't have to tell you this. Up until the last 10, 15 years, the US is in kind of this interesting, murky empire place. But 25, 30 years ago, going to America was like the most exciting thing you could
Let's
say to some
go.
kid,
Let's
right?
go. Right.
Yeah, let's do it. So we went. It ended up being Chicago, northern suburbs of Chicago. But holy crap, man, was that a culture shock. I'll tell I'll tell the funniest version of why it was a culture shock, but there were a lot of other reasons. We ended up moving to a small apartment building in Skokie, Illinois, only made famous by the Usual Suspects movie where he says that he was in a barbershop quartet. Like I'd never heard Skokie mentioned in any other way. The Usual Suspects and a neo-Nazi march in the 70s. Those were the only two things Skokie is known for.
Yeah.
But we ended up living on Elm Street, and I was so unaware of anything American. I literally thought we had just moved to the place where A Nightmare on Elm Street was shot. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with my parents? Out of everywhere in the US, they choose to go to like Freddy Krueger's hangout.
That was a
Uh,
scary movie. I mean, that first one,
Scary as
it
hell.
scared the hell out of
And I'm like,
me.
14 years old. So anyway, turns out every town in America has an Elm Street. There was nothing special
How
about it.
old a guy are you? How old are you right now?
I just turned 14. Oh, I'm 48. I'm
Are you
48
40?
now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, I'll turn 49 this summer.
34
So,
years ago.
yeah, so 34 years ago, my English wasn't non-existent, but it was pretty bad. Um, all of a sudden, I know nobody, right? I went from growing up in the same apartment,
Right.
knowing everybody. I didn't understand how meaningful that was, but what I started discovering was I was actually a really socially anxious kid. In Israel, I had all these friends that I'd had since I was four,
You knew
five.
everybody,
So
right? Everybody knew
I knew
you,
everybody.
and
Yeah,
everybody
it
knows
didn't
you.
really matter. We moved. Now I'm in the foreign kids table. I don't really
Terrible.
speak the language well.
Brutal.
And what ended up happening for me, Ross, and this next story will just sound familiar to a lot of people who've struggled with what we struggle with. Um, Went away to a sleepaway camp with a bunch of Israeli kids. At night, somebody handed around a handle of vodka. I'm 14 years old. I drank before. I mean, you know from the ceremonies, like if you're a Jew, you've had some wine at some
Correct.
dinner, at some seder or something like
Your
that
whole
with your
life.
family.
Your whole
Your whole
life.
life, like since you were eight,
It
right?
was
You've tasted
around,
wine.
right? It was always
Yeah,
around.
it's around and with all the ceremonies. But I never had vodka before, not a warm handle for sure. And but we talked about my social anxiety. There was no chance in hell that I'm saying no in front of all these kids I want to impress. So I grab the bottle of vodka and I take two swigs, which is warm vodka, man. It's just burning all the way down. When it made me want to throw up. Passed the thing off and I thought we were done. But then 15, 20 minutes later, this feeling came over me. And I was like, oh,
I know it well.
oh, I didn't I didn't know you could feel like this.
Yeah.
I had no anxiety. I could walk up to any girl in the room and talk to her. I could have fun with the guys without thinking constantly, which is what my old state of mind used to be like constantly. How do I sound? What am I saying?
Right.
That person's looking at me from the side. Am I looking cool? All this obsession with negative self-thought disappeared.
Gone. Gone.
And Ross, I was all in. From
I get
that
it.
moment, I was like, when is the next party? When do we get to drink again? I started drinking close to every weekend. Every time I got invited to a party, I was in. 2 years later, a girl that I really liked at another high school, we moved again, handed me a joint. Same story. I was like, I like this girl. I'm not saying no to the joint. Smoke some weed. By the time I got to college, so I didn't start anything until about 14 and a half, 15 years old.
Okay.
By the time I got to college, I was smoking and drinking all day, every day.
But just weed so far and alcohol.
Right now, it's just weed and alcohol.
Okay.
Then I had a bad breakup that first semester, and now that inner void, that hole of like, obviously I'm not good enough. This girlfriend I had for 2 years just dumped me. I looked for anything to fill that hole. So blow, ecstasy, uh, a lot of psychedelics. I was, I would say I wasn't sober a day in my life from about 17, 18 years old
I
to
get it.
about 27, 26. I didn't spend one day sober.
You
And I
didn't even
kept
know what
looking and
sober
looking.
was. You didn't even know what sober was. You were just going
No idea.
from using to recovering from using to getting more. It's like a people don't understand. It's like,
And then once meth found me, I
oof.
was off to the races. I mean, I would be up for 3 to 4 days, pass out for 12 to 13 hours, be up for 3 to 4 days, pass out. Now I had a front, which is the way I was able to do this. You said, people that struggle with addiction, we have to have a story,
Right.
otherwise it looks stupid. So I moved to LA for UCLA, but I started a recording studio. I was in the music business. I was, DJing, blah, blah, blah. But
So
really what I
hold on.
did, Ross,
Chicago was up to high school. You
Chicago
leave high
was first
school.
half of high school, then upstate New York was second half of high school,
Where upstate New York?
Rochester, Buffalo,
Oh boy,
Rochester, Buffalo
that's
area.
enough to drive me
Yeah.
to drugs. And
Yeah, yeah,
then,
literally.
and then,
And then I moved myself out to LA.
then you got into UCLA. Is that it?
I got into UCLA. I transferred into UCLA. Um, and now I was on the other side of the country. My parents were in New York. I'm in California. Perfect. Nobody can stop by to visit. It was a free for all, man. It was a free for all. And I was broke, so I started selling drugs in order to
To
be
get
able to
drugs,
afford
right?
my own
I
using.
get it.
But then I found out I was a really good entrepreneur. Like I ended up in college my junior and senior year. I was bringing in 7 to 10,000 a month in profit.
Bro, you're an Israeli Jew. It's not that hard. I mean,
That's what, yeah, like I was bringing in 100, 150K a year
in
while a college
college,
student
right?
in college.
I get it. I get
Tax
it.
free, obviously. So it's like you could make a quarter million a year and be bringing in the same amount of money.
Correct.
And when I left college, I mean, I was so I was so good at persuading everybody that my thinking was somehow rational. I had a partner in the music studio. I persuaded him. I said, "Look, this drug dealing thing is going really well. I bought a suit. You'll love this. I bought a suit. I went to interview at Anderson Consulting and at Bain after college, and then I was like, what am I doing? I make more money
Right. Then they'll
selling
pay you.
drugs
Right.
than they're gonna pay me. Let's stay in the drug dealing business." And I grew it and I grew it. I was doing, over 1 million in sales, 1.5 million in sales probably a year, bringing 300 to 400,000 clean home and
Mostly
living what I
cocaine. Mostly cocaine. Right.
know. We were like a 7-Eleven, man. Meth. I mean, the biggest things were meth, ecstasy. I was selling
Lot of
tens of
MDMA.
thousands of
X. Yeah.
ecstasy pills a week. Like
I get it.
potato sacks worth
I
of
get it.
ecstasy pills, cocaine, meth was a big one for us, and then everything else on the side, whatever people really asked for. I had 4 or 5 guys selling for me at any point in time. I had my own little operation, and gradually, and I don't know if you'll relate to this. I think this next part of the story is a little harder for some people to relate. Um, you hit this point, not just around drug use, but around the entire lifestyle around drugs, where you're now using and treading water just to stay breathing. Like
Correct. I
you're
get it.
using more than you've ever used before. You're up more than you've ever been before. You're more stressed than you've ever been before. And it's all just to make it to tomorrow.
Right.
And I would wake up regularly, Ross, regularly saying, I don't need it today. I don't need the meth. I'm good.
I
Just,
D. Just to take the
yeah,
edge off.
yeah.
That's what I used to. I used to take 10 Valiums just to take the edge off.
Mm,
Just so I could walk
yeah,
out of my doorman apartment because I just felt
yeah,
like edgy and anxious.
yeah.
Literally, I used to say just to take the edge off. And people looked at me and like, oh, not till I recover. Like, what edge? What
How
else?
edgy was this edge?
Right. It was like
But it was really edgy
so.
in my own head. It was
Oh
really
yeah, no,
edgy.
no. This is real stuff. Physically,
Yeah.
everything. It starts to take a
I had a
toll, and
meth pipe. I had a meth pipe with me at all times.
you were
I
smoking
had
the
it in the
meth.
glove
Oy.
compartment. I was smoking it in the glove compartment box of my car. I would be driving with my knee lighting up the fucking pipe. When I finished UCLA, I would have to stop and go to bathroom breaks in the middle of tests in order to smoke more
Oh
meth to stay
God.
awake. It was insanity. It was
I
absolute
actually
insanity.
got psychotic from meth.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
got it got me
I had a
psychotic. Like I became like insane. Like
yeah.
hallucinating
Now
and
Now I got arrested a handful of times. Beverly Hills was essentially a no-go zone for me for about 4 years of this period because all the cops in Beverly Hills knew me.
really
So if I drove through Beverly Hills, we were
pulled you
gonna
over.
get pulled over. It was a known fact. I tried everything. Like I rented cars instead of driving my car. If a cop saw my face,
You're done.
we would get arrested. So in Beverly Hills, if you know LA, it's kind of hard to
I know it
get
very well.
around West LA without going through it. But
You
I had to
gotta
go through
around it.
really big roundabouts
Crazy.
because I had friends who got arrested in the car with me. I wouldn't carry anything in these cars anymore because I knew I was getting pulled over. But I had friends that would just be on a ride with me and they'd get arrested because they had a joint on them or something in
I
Beverly Hills.
understand.
And then the final piece, and this is where the TED Talk happens, was I got off probation in Beverly Hills. I was finally off probation. This is so insane. I used to have a motorcycle. I had my like Lincoln Navigator and my bike, my kind of like Harley like bike. And I was riding through Beverly Hills, Olympic Boulevard, right at Beverly Drive, and at about a half a
I know exactly that intersection too. I can see it. Like
yeah, so there's pavilions right there. I had a half a pound of coke. I was doing deliveries, and I was like, I'm off probation, Beverly Hills. I can ride through here.
it's a very
A car
sane
cuts me
decision.
off.
Very very wise decision.
Ho- Dumbest
Insanity.
decision.
Insanity.
But by the way, it led me here, so it's all good, right?
Well, it was God's hand. I believe. Go ahead.
Yeah. Something bigger than myself had a power in this. This car cut me off. I try to get around it on my bike. I slam my leg against the car and it snaps. My tibia, my shin bones snap. I didn't even fall off the bike. I'm still riding the motorcycle, but my leg is just dangling on the right hand side. I get off the bike, worst pain of my life. I'm laying on the ground screaming in agony. Police come in. As they take me into the ambulance, they take my jacket off. As they were submitting it into evidence, they found a half a pound. And I woke up in the hospital, handcuffed to the bed. I was arrested while in the hospital. And that was the beginning of the end. I still tried, man. I was so insane. I still tried to deal after that in a wheelchair at home. I can't move. The cops are obviously watching me. Full on
Now
insanity trying to hold on to
you're
this.
arrested. You're charged with the crime, right? A half a pound of coke is no joke.
No, they knew. I
Uh,
mean, they knew. And so you know how this goes. I'm sure that in a different level with different focus and targets. Um, all they tried to do was get me to snitch for for
correct.
months,
And no jail,
for
nothing.
months.
Yeah, I get it.
All they would dangle whatever in front of you and say, "Hey, just give us the names. You had a half a pound of coke. That's not for use. You're obviously dealing. Give us the names. Give us the names."
Now
I was,
you could have
I could have,
given them a
I
lot,
could have,
correct? I just want to
I
make sure
could
the
have, but
audience
that's
knows.
not. Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
the way.
I understand.
I chose the life I would I was going to go down with the ship, but literally I would walk through again. Like it's just so crazy to think of the things we've done in our life. I would walk through Beverly Hills to court and back, like with my girlfriend, to go get something to eat.
Yeah, but when you
And
recovered, I
cops,
mean, you had a broken leg, right? And
broken leg.
you
I'm
were
I'm either in a wheelchair or with crutches.
for
And cops
months
would swarm and stop me on the street and go like,
still.
"Are you ready? Are you ready to talk?" Like
Wow,
it was insanity for months and months and months.
wow.
And fortunately for me, my lawyer knew exactly how to talk to me. Again, my lawyer didn't sell me on abstinence. My lawyer didn't sell me on fixing my life. What my lawyer said to me point blank, Ross, was this: "Hey, you're 124 pounds and you're obviously addicted to drugs. If we don't fix this before this trial is over, you're going to spend a decade or more in prison.
Oh yeah.
So you got to go to rehab. You got to fix this." And he sold me. It's like, it wasn't about me, right? Shame. It wasn't about me being
No,
broken. He was like, you got to go fix this problem. Otherwise, you're going to go away for a long time. I was in rehab the next week.
where'd you go if you don't mind me asking?
Well, in the true fashion, I went to a place called, it was in Pasadena. Shit, I just forgot the name of the first place. I
Okay.
got kicked out of my first rehab
I get
for
that.
using.
I get that.
I used meth for 2 months in rehab
My
before they
God.
tested me again, and nightmare.
Because you
And
don't.
then I was homeless
I don't
because
sleep on.
I
I did meth. I was up for 3 days. I mean,
yeah, yeah. No, it was
horrible.
stupid. It was freaking stupid, man. And I would take Tylenol PM, a lot of Tylenol PM at night
Right.
to pass
Right.
out. It was ridiculous.
Right.
They kicked me out. Now I was living in my car essentially, or on different girls' like couches or whatever.
Right.
But it was when I got kicked out. People ask me all the time when the change moment happened to me. It was actually when I got kicked out of rehab, and now I'm homeless. I just spent 3 months fighting a case that I may have shot myself in the foot trying to stay out of prison. And I had a conversation with my dad, who he's passed now, but he called me every morning, man. He was such a good guy. He called me every
Wow.
morning
You're very
to
blessed.
check in on me. And he called, I was in the car driving away from the rehab after just being kicked out. And I started doing that thing we do. I lied to him about why I was like, "Oh, I need to find a new rehab. It's too far from my studio." And then something told me that I need to tell him the truth. And I owned up to it. And it was the first time, Ross, in my life I
You
took
told the
full
truth.
responsibility.
It's the first time you ever told the
Full
truth, probably, since you started that first drink of vodka. I mean,
full
that's my guess.
responsibility. I
Yeah.
was like, and my dad was screaming at me. He was like, "What the fuck do you expect us to do? You just ruined, forget the tens of thousands of dollars on rehab for the last 3 months, but like
Everybody's life, your
your whole
life, our
case,
life, your
your
case,
whole case.
everything.
Like, what are you doing?" And it dawned on me. I still get emotional thinking about this every time, man. It dawned. As he was screaming at me, I realized they can't do anything. I have to fix this,
Yeah.
and that was the moment.
Great. I love it. And then what happened from there? Let's.
I still used for 2 weeks, but I looked for the next place every single day. I found the next place. I'll give them a shout out because they saved my life. It was called the Miracle House,
Okay.
which was a very very structured sober living house in Los Angeles.
Great name.
Um, yeah, and stayed sober there for 8 months. They took me to a group in California called the Pacific Group, which if anybody knows about recovery, there's like the Atlantic Group on the East Coast, the Pacific
Correct.
Group, hardcore recovery.
Yeah.
Like
Militant.
no
Militant.
facial hair, no hats in meetings, wear buttoned up shirt. I mean, like they were intense.
I get it.
And that was the where these people went to meetings. So that's where I went to meetings. Stayed sober for the 8 months. Ate a lot of humble pie.
Now let me ask you a question.
Oh,
Were you
yeah.
clean or sober? You know the difference, right? So I look
I
at my
was,
life and I can tell you I've been clean for a long time, but I can't tell you that I was sober because a lot of the decisions I made were just not, sober decisions. But I was
yeah.
abstinent from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. So I don't use clean and dirty because again, like person-centered language, blah, blah, blah. But I was abstinent the entire time. And as I stayed in the place, like, here's what happened really. And this is, I think, by the way, what I'm about to say right now is probably one of the biggest lessons that I ended up then learning for the rest of my life. It's just, this is the first time it served me. I would be made to be uncomfortable regularly because I would fuck up. I would do stupid shit. And they would call me on it. Like
Correct.
the moment I did something stupid. Now in the streets, you have this like no snitching rule. You don't like,
Right.
you don't talk about other people.
Right.
Newsflash for everybody listening right now. If you care about the people close to you, tell them where they're fucking up.
Correct.
If you care about the people that you love, hold a mirror to their face. And by the way, allow other people to do the same thing for you. Because you can make really stupid judgments and decisions in the vacuum of your own mind. But in my book now, I call it having a personal advisory board. Have some people you look up to, you trust their judgment, their belief in you, etc., and run some shit by them. Because I haven't seen many decisions go very wrong when you think of them in your head first, and then you go to some people you trust who have knowledge, right? Like you're a money guy. I would go for you for money. Like I may not ask you about this new recipe I want to try tomorrow, or like a vacation I want to take. But if I have money issues and you're a friend of mine, I might come to you and be like, "Hey Ross, I had this idea. Tell me, am I an idiot? Like, does this sound crazy or does it sound normal?" In that house, I would get checked regularly. But here's what happened. Because I had been kicked out of rehab, I knew I had to figure out a way to take it. I had to sit with the discomfort of being called on my shit. I couldn't run anymore because if I ran one more time, I was risking like 18 to 20 years in prison.
I get it. I
And
get
so
it.
I
Trust me.
sat 5,000 word essay on why I think I'm better than other people. I had to like all that stuff. And what I learned from that experience that has now served me many, many times in my life is when shit gets uncomfortable, stop figuring out how to run away from it. Start figuring out how to lean into it
How to face it, right?
and face it and then get the information you can from it. If you failed and fell flat on your face, of course you want to lie about it, run away from it, not tell anybody what happened, pretend it didn't exist. But then you'll never learn the lessons that that experience is trying to teach you.
Right. You never
And
get the
so,
benefit of the mistake. There's benefits to everything. It's how you, it took me, my whole life to get to this point, understand all this. But there's a
so when I
benefit
went to
to
jail,
your mistakes. Yeah,
oh my gosh, I mean that's how we learn best is from the mistakes.
I get it,
So by the time I
100%.
went to when the time I went to jail, I would say I was definitely sober. I was responsible. Like I walked in ready to go serve my time. In jail, people bring drugs in. I was not interested. You
I
couldn't
get it.
talk to me about like I was like, no, no, no. I'm here to do my time so I can get back out there and live my life. And but that probably took me a year and a half, 2 years from the arrest
I get
to
it.
get into that mindset.
It's a big thing, and people don't understand. It's sometimes it takes two or three different arrests over the course of your life to get to that blessing you received at this point. Now, how old were you at this
Fortunate
time?
every day. I
You,
was 26 going on 27 when I got out of jail.
when you got out already, so you already had served your time. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, 2003.
okay. And so,
Yeah.
what happens when you get out of prison now? Now you're sober.
Um,
You're clean. You're sober.
I'm
You're in
sober,
the
I'm clean,
program.
I'm
We're to use
yeah.
this word abstinent. You're abstinent because that's a big word for this
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and
I was
and
abstinent.
and you go back to college now. You go back to UCLA. Is
No, no, no.
no
I so I went back to living that sober living because I had nowhere else to live when I got out, right? I mean,
parents cut
it's
you
it's
off? You didn't have any saved money. Parents cut you off.
they didn't cut me off, but all my money got taken out. I'll tell you a funny part in a minute, but all my money got used up between the lawyers and all the other stuff. So I had no money. No, my parents were fucking saints, man. Like it took me 5 years after release probably to realize how lucky, privileged, and fortunate I was. My
Right.
dad would fly from New York to LA every month to come visit me in jail.
Wow.
He was at every court
What
appearance
a
every
father.
month.
What a man.
Um, yeah, I mean, fuck. I don't know where I would be, and the next part of the story will explain that even more candidly. So I get out, I go back to living in that sober living because I know them, I know the program, I can get along. And then I try to find work um, with 9 felony convictions. I couldn't get hired anywhere, Ross.
I understand. I have guys call me. I'm fortunate at this point, but I
Sure,
have
yeah.
people calling me. Guys that I did time with. They can't get work. They can't get hired. They make it to the final interview, and then the conviction comes up. Never. It's
Nine
rough.
felonies, not a gun charge. I mean,
So you
manufacturing
had a gun
charge.
charge. You had a gun
Yeah, yeah,
charge.
yeah.
You had
So
conspiracy to distribute. Right, all these different things. Right.
6 of those, 3 manufacturing. I mean, it was bad, and so
They stacked
it
them
was the
up
same
on you.
thing.
Yeah,
I would get to the first interview, the second interview. They go, "Oh, you're a shoe in. We just got to do the background check." Now, I've checked the box.
I
Yes,
get
I've
it.
been convicted of a
Yep.
felony, so they
Yep.
knew it. Russ, I got ghosted every single time. Apple ghosted me. The Apple stores were starting to open up. I was this close to getting a job at the Apple store. They gave me the location and the time for the training
Ay,
and then ghosted me the moment the back I couldn't. So for 9 months I'm trying to get a job and my parents helped pay rent and that sober living in the meantime.
thank
And
God.
that's when I made the decision to go back to school. Was
Okay. Listen, that's very good because
Yeah,
you wouldn't be where you are today if all these different things didn't happen. These are blessings in disguise in an odd way.
100%.
Your
And then
rejection,
again, and that's why I tell everybody like put one foot in front of the other. Just do the next best thing you can
correct.
do, and then the world will reveal itself, and you will have more information to make the next best decision.
So now you were already a college graduate, correct?
I was a college graduate, just barely made it out of UCLA. I called the UCLA office to see if I could apply to a PhD program, and they essentially, this guy named Steve, who I know now well because I think he's retired now, but he essentially said, "Don't even don't waste the $75 on the application fee. You're not getting back in. So I went to Cal State Long Beach, and thank God for that.
Okay.
Again, I met the right mentors at the right time. I went from being a C plus student to being a straight A student. And like Ross, I can tell just in our conversation here and from watching you on other things, you know, there's a way to utilize the same proclivities that we have in our addictions, which is like dog with a bone, right? I will figure out a solution to the problem if I really care about solving that problem.
100%.
And I went to school. So I was like, school is my way to stay out of prison for the rest of my life. I became a 4.0 student. I was a model. I won scholarships that I didn't even know existed because professors would submit me for them, which meant school was free, by the way, which was really important to me. But then I found a mentor who really showed me the ropes in terms of how to do academics well, how to be a good academic.
Right.
So then I got back into the PhD program at UCLA. I had
Wow.
four professors go to bat for me. They arranged lunches, um, and they got me in. They helped me get into UCLA program. So I ended up getting my PhD then from UCLA
So
and
you're really a doctor. Dr.
PhD, yeah,
Jaffe. That's a doctor.
doctor of psychology, yeah, doctor of psychology.
And that's what, a 3 year like ordeal, a
No, it
3 year
took me
program.
5 years. So 2 years for the master's and then 5 years to
So you
finish.
have a master's and a doctorate.
Two
I just
two
want I
masters,
want
yeah,
the
two
audience to
masters,
hear this. This is very important.
two masters, yeah, two
You
masters and a
you
doctorate.
did climb the academic ladder.
I
You
did.
figured out the game. You obviously had a thirst or an appetite for it, and look how accomplished you are right now. Double
Yeah, no, thank you.
masters.
It feels, you know, I will say this, man. I had no fucking humility before this process started, and I am filled with humility now. It's actually funny. This came up in a session just the other day I did for myself with an exercise. It still feels strange to own and kind of be not be proud. I'm proud of the achievements, but humility is so built into my DNA now. I always want to just leave a little room for the fact that I don't know what I don't know right now, and I'm always open to learning more and changing. And so, but what you landed on, the you're really a doctor piece, what the PhD got me, and it was a fucking grind to get it, but what the PhD got me is now, despite, like when I bring up for people the fact that I went to jail and I was addicted to meth and I used to sell drugs, the PhD has now allowed me to elevate myself enough so people take me seriously in conversations.
Oh, I get that. I get that. I mean,
And
the fact that you're a doctor to me, and you would think I know better. I give you your due. I mean, they're not just giving them away unless you know certain people, and then you can
sure,
get.
sure, sure.
But in my world, it happens every day. But just saying that, truth be told, you accomplished a lot in the face of incredible odds. Because anybody that heard the first part of your story would say, "Good fucking luck. This guy ain't. You're a dropout. You're not real. It's not. There's no way you could be that accomplished." Um, the spirit, the human spirit, you obviously, it's
Amen.
somewhere in your DNA. You had good support from your dad and your family, but something inside of you, you have enough moxie,
Mm,
to go from that Beverly Hills motorcycle accident, the arrest, the handcuffing in a hospital. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I know I have
yeah,
woken up in a
exactly. So,
hospital handcuffed with two cops sitting across from me. I've experienced that. So I really understand how sort of, that's how God has introduced me to humility umpteen times. So I
yeah.
get it, but the fact that you're an accomplished, uh, in your field, it allows me to drop a lot of my stuff that I've learned
Mm,
along the way and to listen to you more closely when you talk about elements of change against this order that we call abstinence,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
AA, all that stuff. I give you more credence because you've actually had to study, read the books, write the papers, the whole shebang.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, and I appreciate that. Secondly, you already said in the beginning, and let's leave a link when we're done with this. I actually did a debate, which was funny. It was couched as like, does AA work or not? But it ended up being a totally different kind of debate. And both the guy on the other side, Dan Griffin, and I agreed in the end, which is AA has a lot of good for it, but it may need some updating because what was groundbreaking in the 30s is just not
Right.
groundbreaking anymore. And we know new stuff. Now, I think what I just said is true about everything, right?
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
one of the reasons I was really looking forward to this interview is I've seen some of your other content. I've seen you talk to a lot of other really accomplished people who are successful with money, and that's great. And for anybody who doesn't know what I'm about to say is true, please take it fully, lock, stock, and barrel. It's true regardless of whether you know it or not. Everybody has a backstory. They may just not be telling you it, right? So
Correct.
you can look at the person who's the most successful, making the most money, driving the best car, having the hottest wife, seeming like his life is perfect. I promise you, and I've worked with hundreds of ultra high net worth individuals at this point. I promise you, there's a backstory to what's going on right now. You just may not know it. And the lesson from that for me and why I was looking forward to this interview is I knew that somebody like you, who's been to the highest highs and the lowest lows, in order to be able to do what you're doing now, which is sharing the story, sharing, elevating people, sending out a message of hope, in order to bridge that, I think the only way to do it is a substantial dose of humility
Yeah,
because
no question.
you will buy into the story when you're at the top. There's actually a quote from um, Robert De Niro in one of these like um, actor circles of a conversation. He says, "Hey, remember always to just not take things too seriously, no matter where you are. When you're at the top and everybody loves you and you're the best ever and you're making all the money, just relax.
Easy
This will
does it.
pass. It's not going to stay like this forever. When you're at the bottom and it's the worst it's ever been, you can't believe you have to live another day like this. Just relax. It's not going to stay like this. And when people like us, when you've been to the top and you've been to the bottom, and I haven't been to your tops, but I've been high enough to see around the mountain. When you take that in deeply, it's like, okay, today's going to be a good day or a bad day. I get to determine a lot of that by my mindset and
Correct.
how I approach it. And no matter what day it is, tomorrow's going to be another day. And I have to do this all over again. And that's a good thing.
I agree. A couple of things. This too shall pass is one of my favorite. I mean, four words put together never meant so much to anybody. This too
Mm,
shall pass, because I had a lot of lows in my life, a lot of tough times, a
sure.
lot of struggles, brutal. I'm not even talking about prison. I'm talking, losing my father at 16, the
Yeah.
endless parade of nonsense I had to deal with, and the pain and the hurt, and you know the insecurities I felt, and you know, at the top, at my height, I'm worth about $300 million between my company and myself. Forbes does a three-page story on me with photos. They wanted to put me on the cover, but Steve Ballmer just became the new CEO of Microsoft, so they bumped me. But they did like 15 stories on me. But this was a really big deal. I'm running two
Yeah.
public companies. I just made 65 million on this deal that they put in the
Mm,
magazine, and I remember having a very hard day that day when everybody was applauding me because I also knew this too shall pass,
mm,
and it's something that I understand, and and at some points in prison I got sick. You have no medical treatment. I was I had needed physical help and I got none for quite some time, being, in my 60s, locked down at
mm.
prison, COVID, all these things, solitary.
Yeah.
And I
Oof.
rem and this too shall pass. I couldn't even get those four words together.
Mm,
That's how bad it was. I wasn't sure there was going to be another day. So,
mm,
I have a humility that comes from a lot of different experiences, et cetera, both good, bad, and ugly as fuck, really. But that's why I think I relate to you a little bit, and I get, you have this remarkable sort of turnaround, and in the TED talks, you're very entertaining and you're laughing and body language and all these different things. So somehow you manage to encapsulate so much in 15 minutes. It's hard to believe that whole
mm.
thing was 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, and the emotional swings when you're
Hmm.
telling your story to an audience. The audience is like, coke, motorcycle, the leg, the cops, the handcuffs. I mean, all these different things left a real vision for me. But all right,
Mm,
so now you're a doctor.
yeah.
You've really embraced the study of psychology and the mind and behavior and all these different things, right? That encompass that field. Talk now about some of these groundbreaking things that you've managed
Yeah.
to. I don't want to use the word corner the market, but I've heard them before on TV. Guys advertise stuff for rehab, and they say, you can
Oh
still
God.
drink or whatever the thing. You don't have to be
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
a lot of. And I remember thinking, what a scam! They're going to be revealed. It turns out they were revealed. It was a couple, and they were using the whole time, and they were bringing people in
Oh
and
my God.
taking money. Bad, and it was in California. Some bad things, but
Yeah.
you're the logic behind the explanation. You can't turn people away that need help just because of a word called abstinence. I get
Yeah.
that
So let me.
today.
Yeah. Let me just. First of all, let me just say this. I didn't think I was going to do this for a living, man.
I
I
get
really
it.
didn't.
I
I was
understand.
finishing my PhD. I thought I was going to be a professor. I wanted to make my family proud. I was having interviews at University of Florida, City University in New York, like respectable schools that I was going to interview in to become a professor.
And
And then, like I said,
you look very professorial today. Just with the hat and
thank you. I
the
appreciate it. I would have loved being a professor. I love teaching. I've taught thousands and thousands of students when I was at UCLA. I taught there for almost a decade. Um, and then I ran across, I think we talked about it in the pre-show, so I want to put it on here. Maybe
please.
no, I think actually, sorry. In the intro, I gave this statistic, but I was shocked, man. Like I was doing research after my PhD. It's called a postdoc, and I heard that number in somebody's presentation. I think it was actually either Rick Rawson, who was the head of um, that clinic, or somebody else associated with it. And it was that 90% of people who need addiction help don't get treatment. That number has now changed. It's 95% of people. But
Staggering.
I was like, I'm literally sitting there at this presentation. I thought I was going to go teach and then learn about addiction methods and how to make the world better for addiction. And then I went, who cares about a better treatment method when 90% of people don't even go get treatment?
They don't
Like,
even get in the door, let alone.
so
I get it.
what the hell am I doing? And I think in that same entrepreneurial spirit that proved to serve me well in drug dealing, I went, I can't just sit around and wait for this. So I'm gonna tell you, like, I you're a finance guy. Like, entrepreneurship is a bizarre, bizarre world because you never really know what's gonna work, right?
True. I get it.
You you have a good idea and then you put it out into the market and you see how it does. But what I was clear about after that research that I talked about in the beginning was this. And it's literally on our mission statement for Ignited, which is the company I have that helps people now coming out of jails and prisons. Literally, that's how I've ended up. I do my ultra high net worth executive leadership coaching to fund everything, and then the mission is to help people coming out of jail and prisons. So
That's great.
I I learned this thing, and I go, okay, well, how would we even do this? How would we set up a program that is affordable, easy to access, doesn't require abstinence, and reduces shame? Like I had no model. This is 2009, 2010. Like
Right.
nobody was doing this. So I really had to go to the drawing board, and we started a program with another clinical psychologist locally here, and we just tested stuff. Honestly, Ross, we just tested stuff. But over and over and over, we had clients coming to us saying, executives, doctors, lawyers saying, look, I drink too much. I use too much. Technology addiction, porn addiction, all these gambling, right? All these different addictions. They're like, I'm not ready to quit. And so we had to start figuring out a language of how to talk about it to bring them into the fold. And that was 2010 when it started. By 2018, I'd say we figured out a little bit of it. Um, but in 2017, you talked about technology earlier. I realized we're going to have to get to a place where we can deliver this on phones and on laptops. Like I wanted to help millions of people,
I love it.
Ross,
I
and
love it.
there's no way to do that with a clinic. You can't do that with a clinic. So I started going online, which if you remember before COVID, we're doing this now, but before COVID, this stuff was insane. You're like,
It's really amazing how this virus changed so many things, and and it's I love this, but I think that like I told you back in 1984, 85, they told me this was going to be possible. And
yeah,
it's
the
like we
gen,
know each
I
other
mean, the
now,
you
and
know, the,
we know each other now a little bit, and we've never been within like 2,800 miles of each other. And
yeah.
that's
Although
a miracle.
next time I'm in Miami or Delray, I'll hit you up.
Oh, I can't wait, and I want to
So
see you when I'm in LA.
yeah, heck yeah. So I started figuring out, and I used all the money I was making from my, I'll call it my real business, which is coaching and consulting and all that, to fund creating an app that then helps people virtually. Um, and I said this before, I said it a million times. I use the client, I use my own personal experience, I use the studies that I had over, my schooling and after, and then I use our client experience to keep trying to answer a really, really simple question. We know this in the end. I mean, look at what recovery has given you, right? The goal is to have a life you're proud of, a life you love living, a life you don't want to escape from. Because if you don't want to escape from it, you're not going to open that back door again to whatever the hell is willing to come in. Um, and what I learned, I started out studying addiction and the neuroscience of addiction. But what I learned is it's about relationships. It's about attachment from your family at an early age. It's about trauma. It's about mental health, anxiety, depression, things of that nature. So all of a sudden, I had to become a kind of an expert in a way in all these different categories. Most of the people I work with now, ironically, in my private business, if they're addicted to anything, Ross, they're addicted to money, work, and success. And I know you know people like what I'm talking about right now. They can't stop. They
Correct.
cannot stop. And for some of them, that leaves some pretty the wake of that wave can become pretty destructive, leaving
It's just like
relationships in
being
trouble.
addicted to crystal meth or cocaine. I deal with the same thing, and just because I work 18 hours a day, does that mean that I got a problem? I say yes. Essentially, yes. If it's affecting your marriage, your relationship with your children, and this, that, and 18 different things, yes. We leave. We create wreckage, and
Yeah, we definitely
and
can. I mean,
some.
look, I love obviously Stephanie. Like your family is your daughters are part of this with you, or your daughter at least Stephanie is part of this with you.
Well, I have two daughters, and Stephanie's actually my ex-wife.
Oh, Stephanie's your ex-wife. I love it.
Yeah, and
So even like,
we're all very, very close. And listen, I was away for 112 months in the federal system. So understand, if not, if it wasn't because the man that I became as a result of getting sober, going to, I don't know, tens of thousands of meetings, all the
sure.
people I sponsored, the people, my sponsors, my mentors, the people
Mm,
I've been mentoring, and the psychiatry from Dr. Knauer, which is why I married Stephanie. That's a whole other story. But without that psychiatrist, I wouldn't have even thought about it. And it has been just another crazy example that you can overcome anything. And my family now is healed. I'm on the phone with my baby daughter last night. She's going to law school. Both girls graduated from school early. My youngest got to University of Florida in 3 years, and now she's going to law school. It starts in August. And my other one is like the number two producer at a technology headhunting company. She did it
that's
with no
awesome,
help
man.
from daddy. Dad, stay out of this. I got it.
That's beautiful.
I mean, she's generating like 30,000 a week in business for this company. She's making real money.
That's beautiful.
So I owe it all to God and to the healing that enabled me, gave me the strength to come out of 112 months. I didn't go to prison until I
Mm,
was 57 years old. I lived a dream life. I had a perfect life, legitimate. I really felt like I had a perfect life. I was that blessed.
yeah.
4 dogs, 4 homes. I used to buy four of everything: shoes, clothes. I mean, you name it. I mean, it's crazy. But I love your reasoning. I love the reasoning, and it's based on real data. You're right. 95% of the people do not get help because it's very intimidating.
It
I got to
is.
stop doing everything. What? Abstinence is
And
a
it's like, and I got to stop doing, like, here's what I say. We use these behaviors like a crutch,
no
right?
question.
And we know it. Like for me, I told part of my story and social anxiety, give me some alcohol and weed, no social anxiety. I'm good.
Correct.
But I never treated the problem. I still feel weird around people and socially anxious. So
Correct.
now you're walking up to somebody like me who has never learned to deal with their anxiety around people and you're saying, "Hey, your legs are weak because you've been using crutches for 20 years. Just kick the
Right.
crutches out." And
Right.
I'm not saying it's not a good answer. I'm saying we know from the data is most people are not willing to kick the crutches.
I get it. And I
So
that's
let's give
why
them a
I,
cane.
I sit here today and I applaud you, Dr. Jaffe. I applaud you
Well,
because this is
I
the first
appreciate,
sensible reasoning that I've heard in all my life being around the program since literally 1990.
yeah,
I applaud you,
I,
and I want the audience to understand. I mean this sincerely now because I have a lot of
I,
sober people on the show on my podcast.
yeah, yeah,
Kevin
yeah,
Lanning. I mean, guys that this is the only answer. Guys that were taking like 30, 40 painkillers a day. Just
mm,
just lying and cheating and every immoral thing that we could think of. You package the seven deadly sins, and we lived. You know,
yeah,
we lived them all. But so
yeah.
so tell us now about your program, your what you're doing, and how you're helping people, and you know,
Well,
uh,
I have a quote based on what you just said about those other people and your experience. I have a quote in the book I think you'll like, and it's method agnostic, but anybody can beat their addiction to anything. You just have to be willing to become somebody who is not addicted. And what I mean by that, and it's hard for anybody who hasn't been through the journey to understand, but I use it as a light at the end of the tunnel for people. People think that once you've gone too far down, you can't make it back. And you just spoke to it, and I've seen it hundreds, if not thousands of times. I have seen lives that people have completely written off. Like like this person would be lucky to just survive another year.
right?
And I've seen people like that make miraculous turnarounds and have incredible lives. But that means a lot in their life has changed. Oftentimes, almost everything in their life has changed. And I'm not talking about the using. Of course, that probably has changed, but I'm talking daily habits, perspective on life, the people they spend their time with, the way they think about what's possible and what's not possible. Self-exploration. You talked about the psychiatry, you talked about therapy that you've done. Like you have to look inward, you have to look outward, you have to be willing to change almost everything,
I agree.
and then you can become anything you want. And
And
it's
you can accomplish anything you want.
and I didn't understand that when my journey started. I thought it was all about losing the freedom. I thought it was all about losing my choice. And so that's before we go into what I do now. I want people to understand it. And you mentioned some guests you've had, and I'm sure in the rooms you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of the story I'm talking about right now. And it happens in those rooms, it happens in other rooms. I just want people to know the number one thing you have to do is make a decision that you're willing to change. I don't know what that change will be yet for you,
Correct.
right? But if you're willing to commit, in the book they say, if you're willing to essentially do anything, right? If you're willing to commit to doing what you're told to do, I just think now we can expand that to beyond that methodology alone, and but it still requires the same level of commitment, right? I am now 2002 was the last time I used meth. So 23 years ago was the last time, right? And like I have to have the same level of commitment to self-exploration, change, progress, understanding myself. Married for 15, 16 years. You think that doesn't require work? It requires a ton of work, like
Oh
every
boy,
week.
that's a whole nother subject.
So,
Yep.
yeah,
Human
3 kids.
relationships. Beautiful.
And I see this in you. I welcome it now. I don't look at it as a chore. I welcome the growth. I
Right.
welcome the learning. And so I think that's before we go into the next stage, I just want to be clear for people. I'm not espousing, I'll talk about my methods, but I'm not espousing my methods as the solution. I'm saying if you're interested in change, there is a solution that will work out for you somewhere out there. Start looking around, pick what you feel like you want to try it. It'll either help or it won't help. If it helped, that's great. Welcome to the rest of your life. If it didn't, just pick up another solution and go try that. And just do not quit until you find what you want to find.
I love it. I love it, and I applaud you. I do. You seem like you're healthy. You have wisdom. You have real experience. You're not just an academic that studied this stuff. You they say that in the book in 1935, they say that
Yeah,
the power when one alcoholic speaks to another alcoholic cannot be duplicated, copied. There's no substitute for that kind of thing. So when I
sure.
hear you talk, we're members of the same tribe as well.
Amen. Yeah.
It resonates with me for some reason, and intuitively I understand, having been abstinent, having been non-abstinent, the sum total of my life experience of my journey. It's 100% possible, and I
Yes.
believe that it opens the door to maybe another 15-20% of millions of people that are suffering and that are essentially hopeless. And
Yeah.
and I feel like hope is the most important emotion, because if you lose
I
hope,
couldn't agree more.
no matter where you are in life, top of the mountain, bottom of the mountain, mid mountain, no hope. Even when I was at my lowest, locked in solitary during COVID, sick, hurting, you couldn't get food, you couldn't get a shower, you couldn't get a phone call. I mean, sometimes no
Mm.
books. How about no water for a day and a night? No water,
Oh,
no water, zero for a day and a night. And they're telling you, don't worry, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I mean, I never really lost hope. At some point I was just trying to just survive the day. But I wake up. Like that's why I'm so grateful that a day is only 24 hours. I've had bad days, boy, but you know what? The next day something happens, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Something clicks in your brain, and there's hope again.
yeah.
It's amazing, and that we're having this conversation today, because I believe just airing this podcast and clips from this podcast, we're going to be able to help people and change the trajectories of certain people's lives.
Somebody,
And
somebody will write a message to you or me and
hundred
say,
percent,
"Thank you for having this conversation."
there's no
100%.
question. There's no question.
Yeah. And by
There's
the way, so I had and sorry, I
no.
just love connecting with you on this level. Coming from where I came from, I just talked to a friend who's considering she's trying to figure out what to do with her life. And for her it's not addiction, it's just mental health stuff and other things that have happened. And she was trying to figure out what to do with the rest of her life. And she wants to help people. And she got stuck in this place of thinking, well, but what if I don't succeed? And I said, just pause for a moment. If you could help one person change their life for the better, would the work you do be worth it? And she said, yeah. I go, then forget success. Just focus on helping somebody.
Correct.
And then make it not about you. It's not about you. Make it about helping that person. And, to be now in a position where, you know, tens of thousands of books sold, I've helped thousands of people where I in meetings like this or in that setting, and then hundreds more in much deeper ways. Have spoken in front of tens of thousands of people, and like 500,000 people saw that TED talk that you mentioned.
Amazing.
I am humbled every day that I get to come from facing 18 years in prison, drug dealing, really kind of a dead end to my life, and that we get to do this now.
Can you imagine?
So if
It's
one
amazing.
person gets the benefit from it, my day's work is more than done. Like I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I'm humble. That's why I was so glad we get to have this conversation. Um,
On camera yet? Yep.
yeah, just
It comes to my head right now. It says in the Talmud, if you save one life, it's as if you saved the entire world. And for a long
yes.
time, I never got that. But doing
Mm,
what I do today, which is, I mentor people. I have a mastermind program where,
yeah.
I actually, on Google Meet filmed, and I counsel men and some women now, and I see that I'm saving people. I'm changing lives. And some of these guys and these women have kids, 3 children, one has 5 children. And, so the counseling is going much further than just one on
It's
one.
generational.
It's crazy. And who knows the effect that it will have, later on. And, this podcasting business and the social media aspect of it and all that, I get so much feedback that keeps me going. Sometimes I say, "What am I doing this for?" I
Yeah.
don't need this. I'm not. I just want to go lay on a beach somewhere or buy a boat and just float around. But like, I feel like it's a higher calling. And then I get like a note from somebody. I get a DM. You changed my life. Thank you. I heard this and that. And so the rewards to me, I don't even. I can't put it really in words, and I could pretty much talk about anything. I could talk to a fire hydrant for 2 hours.
Mm,
But the feeling when I counsel somebody in this sort of like you know traditionally unorthodox way,
yeah.
and to get the result, I mean that's what keeps me going. And this is an amazing a podcast
100%.
for me, and I can't imagine how it's going to come out for people that you know are debating in their heads and struggling. I'll tell you a story quickly. I can't really talk about it
Yeah,
too much,
please.
but somebody very close to me, a big, very successful Wall Street guy. His daughter's she's got problems. I'm not going to get into details, but
Sure, sure, sure.
and we're just now getting her into a sort of a rehab. And he knows me over 45 years through business
Mhm.
and friendship and weddings and funerals and birth dates and all that kind of thing. And, to be able to offer her guidance, this and that. And for someone like this to be able to say, there's an alternative. There
Yes.
could be, it's not cut and dry, black and white, because it's not.
You just got
I
to get them
understand
started.
the need if you want to just create, real hard boundaries, but life is not like that. Nothing in life is just black and white. No system, no methodology, whatever. They say
Yeah.
diabetes. You got to take insulin every day. If you don't take insulin every day, you're gonna end up dying and you can lose body parts, etc. Well, guess what? What if you don't take it on Tuesday? You're
Yeah.
not going to die. It doesn't change a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying they have
Yeah.
this sort of hard and fast rule. Got to take it every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not
And I know
exactly
people who
true.
manage their diabetes fully by diet now, right? And I mean, they
100%.
still have to measure their blood
Exercise and
insulin levels
diet,
all the time.
correct? That's the new thing that the Surgeon General
Yeah, yeah.
couldn't figure out for the last 150 years.
And
You
that's a
know,
technology change, like you said, right? Like we learn more every single day.
every
And
day.
I'm really, again, I'm always honored and humbled to just be able to have these conversations because I think, being Jewish, this idea of making the world better, right? Tikkun olam, like this idea of how can you help something in the world be better? There aren't a lot of ways that I can. I learn about money, I learn about entrepreneurship from people like yourself and people who've done much, much more in that setting than I have. But this is the place where I get to help people, right? I help them break habits that don't serve them so that they can live the life that they need to live. And you spoke to it so well. If they've got kids, they've got a loved one, they've got other family, those people also depend on us to help them.
They get the benefit. It's amazing. And the most important thing to me is when I see the light go on somebody's eyes. I literally see a
Mm,
light go on in somebody's eyes. Like there was nobody home, and all of a sudden now there's like a sparkle,
I
there's a
get it.
light, there's a glimmer. And that's to bring a little bit into somebody's life. It's like saving the whole world, according to
I love it. So
scripture.
let's get into, I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of like the method that I developed.
Let's
And then
go.
I specifically, Ross, I want to hear because I think there are actually a lot of parallels. Like in our online program, there's actually a how to incorporate the 12 steps and ignited. We have a group on that because we do get a lot of
Interesting.
people who've either been to 12 steps or are still in them and just need more support. So my method is called the Unhooked method. That's the book is called Unhooked.
Show. Let's see.
But
Let's see. Let's see it on camera. Let's see it on
yeah,
camera.
so it's called Unhooked.
Unhooked.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Catchy.
Um,
Very
free yourself from addiction forever. The point is, once you understand why the using happens, you can break down the reasons why you get pushed to use, and that will make quitting easier anyway, and it'll also allow you to develop other choices of behavior. So as I speak to this, I'd actually love to have your thoughts on how this relates to the same things that worked for you. So the unhooked method has really like two main elements. Number one is what I call my sparrow behavioral loop. So SPARO, and that just explains why we do what we do. So I'll start there. And then the other part is what I call the eat cycle. And I kind of joke, I say, you got to make sure that you're eating the right things physically in order to make your body healthy. Well, you also have to eat the right things psychologically
I
in
agree.
order to make your mind healthy. So the eat cycle is the next one. So I'll explain Sparrow real fast. SPARO. That stands for stimulus, perception, activation, response, and outcome. Stimulus, perception, activation, response, and outcome. What I talk about in the book is nobody ever wants to change until an outcome turns up that they don't like. Something happens in your life that makes you feel crappy. That's the first time you'll think about changing
Right.
that behavior. If drinking is going well and it's making you not anxious and you hang out with other people and it's all good, nobody sits around and goes, maybe I should slow down on my drinking. That's never a thing that happens. You black out, you get a DUI. Your girlfriend's like, what the hell is wrong with you? You acted like an idiot last night.
Right.
You lose a job, whatever, right? Something bad happens.
Some trigger in your life.
Some That's a negative outcome. And we talked about this before, but I want to remind everybody, stop running away from negative outcomes. They're the biggest teacher you will ever have in your
Correct.
life. When something happens that is wrong, it's the first time you think to yourself, wait, that didn't turn out the way I wanted to. How do I change? So even though outcome comes in the end, it's actually the beginning point for many, many people. After the outcome, and I have a drawing about this in the book, maybe we can put this in the notes. After the outcome, you go through this eat cycle: explore, accept, transform. Explore. Why the hell did that just happen in my life? If you do a really deep exploration, and I have a lot of tools in the book to figure that out, you will discover some things you really don't like about yourself, about the people in your life, about the way you live. It could be trauma. Oh my God, whenever I go out on a date, it reminds me, I'm going to use an actual story from a previous client. Whenever I go out on a date, I get triggered because my past relationship, I was sexually assaulted a lot.
I knew you were going to say that.
And so when I go out on a date, I get really anxious and freaked out and I can't be comfortable on the date. So I drink, I pre-party before the date and I get kind of drunk before I even go on the date so that I can be there. Right. So my trauma from before makes me super anxious when I go meet somebody new. And that's one reason I drink. Okay. That's one piece. Um, how about negative, same person I'm talking about, negative body image, right? I think I'm ugly. I feel weird going on dates with people. So this woman in particular would just get really drunk before dates, which normally would mean a few more drinks during the day and she would black out. And she just couldn't figure out why that was going.
I
So
think I've
another
dated.
blackout.
I think I went out with her a few times. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
me too.
Play it.
Me too. Four of them.
Yeah.
So explore is the first part. But in exploration, you find a lot of things you don't like about yourself, your past, and your life.
If you're honest with
That's why
yourself, you gotta.
yeah,
Honesty is very important. You got to
huge.
try
And
and
that's
get honest.
Yes. So after explore comes accept. Accept is where the fuck shame piece comes in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just realized a lot of things about myself I don't like. How do I sit with that discomfort? How do I fight the urge to run away, pretend like I'm all good when I'm actually really, really suffering? So that's the accept, explore, accept. Once you've come into acceptance, by the way, I'm running through this, but for some people,
Yeah.
it takes months to get through acceptance,
Maybe years. I'm just
maybe
saying.
years
Acceptance is
with a
very important
therapist.
because
It
that's
takes
the
time.
key. Acceptance, really, one of the
I
big
love it.
keys.
Huge. Now you're ready to transform. But
Right.
until you've had acceptance, transforming is really, really difficult
No such
because
thing.
what you're trying to do is you're trying to cut a piece of yourself away. You can't. It's inside of you,
Correct.
right? Um, Wherever you go, there you are, right? Is the famous phrase. You cannot run away from these things about yourself you don't like. So negative outcome comes in, explore, accept, transform. What I talk about in transforming, and this will sound familiar to you, I think, is there are four places where you can transform: the triggers themselves. So stimulus in the beginning of Sparrow, that's about triggers. People, places, things, experiences,
Right.
feelings, all that kind of stuff, right? You can't fully control them, but especially in early recovery, getting rid of really bad triggers is probably a good idea, right? The joke, right? If you're trying to quit drinking, maybe don't have a bunch of alcohol on a bar in front of you when you walk into the house
Right.
at your apartment. Makes sense. That's one place, stimulus. But the next one is perception and activation, and that's about your beliefs and your ability to control your physiological state, your stress activation state. So perception, you talk a lot. I've listened to some of the podcasts with people about self beliefs. Too many of us come to this equation with perspectives on the world that are hurting us on a daily basis, regularly.
I get
We
it.
look down at ourselves, we look down at other people, we look at the world as a dark and evil place, right? And those negative perspectives create negative emotional responses. They create stress. So working on your self-beliefs is another piece. We have a whole section for that. Activation. I'm sure if you've done all that therapy and all that psychiatry, things like breathing exercises, meditation, journaling, gratitude list, right? Huge part in 12 step is having a gratitude list daily. Those practices are really practices of taking emotional stress, emotional reactivity, and learning how to self regulate. Because if you don't know how to control what's going on inside of you, you'll keep blaming everybody on the outside for
Correct.
causing your emotional state.
Finger pointing. Yep. Yep. Yep.
But you're much more in control of it than you realize. Last but not least is response. So, stimulus, perception, activation, response. From an early age, we learn how to respond to stress, anxiety, depression, negative self thoughts. We have a menu. I talk about it in the book of how to respond. So like when I'm anxious, I drink, or I yell at somebody, or I play video games for hours to avoid, or I start binge watching TV, or I smoke a lot of weed. Whatever it is for you listening right now, when specific negative states happen, you learn, often by the way, from a much earlier age than you realize, to escape in a specific kind of way.
Right.
Sincere long term recovery is about expanding the menu of what you can do when you have the negative states. So, research, this is actually probably one of the biggest things I talk about in the book and throughout my work. Research has shown us over and over and over we are much, much worse at stopping a bad behavior than we are replacing it with another alternative. Again, I'll just repeat it.
I get
We're
that.
bad at stopping ourselves from doing anything. We're much better at replacing it. By the way, this is one of the reasons why AA does work really well. What is one of the big sayings in AA? If you want to drink, go to a meeting,
Correct.
call your sponsor. That's a replacement behavior. You start teaching yourself, I want to drink, I need to call my sponsor. I want to drink, I need to go to a meeting. You're not doing nothing. You're not sitting there not drinking. You're
Correct.
doing something else instead. So that's another really, really big piece of the puzzle. Some people go for a run. Some people create art. Some people go to a therapy appointment. They journal, whatever it is. You have to start creating replacement behaviors that you are religious about. Like they are what you now do. And so that's the process. Now, what will happen is as people learn these new replacement behaviors, sometimes it'll work and then the outcome will be positive and everything is good. Sometimes it won't work. The outcome will be negative again, and you have to go through the same cycle again. Hey, what worked? What didn't work? Why? How do I accept it? And you transform through that again.
And when you're mentoring or coaching people, it's much easier for somebody to recover when they discuss with you because you're intelligent, you'll learn it, you've been through it yourself. You can say, "Hey, here's what I would do, and this is what I did." And I'll never forget. Early on, I got sober essentially at a meeting in New York City after rehab, and it was my home group. I was 79th Street and First Avenue. It's a very very famous meeting. It was a beginners meeting at 10 o'clock, and I said, "Why is it at 10 o'clock?" They said, "Because you're going to see you stop drinking, you stop using drugs, you live in Manhattan. Good luck trying to sleep." I never knew Manhattan was so noisy. until I came back
Jeez.
from rehab in Connecticut. I was like, I couldn't for like a month. It was so everything was. I heard every cab. You know, you tune it out somehow when you live there. But when you first like, I came back sober. I was never in Manhattan. I was never anywhere sober, and I
Yeah,
was like,
right.
so I would go to this meeting from 10 to 11 and then go out to eat, from 11 to like 12, 12:30, because I was
Yeah.
sleeping. I really wasn't sleeping much my first year, but I had to exchange my behaviors, and I started reading scripture at night.
Mm,
Sometimes I slept
it helps.
maybe a half hour because I couldn't sleep because I was addicted
Yeah.
to Valiant, benzodiazepines,
That's
and on
hard.
top
That's
of
hard
everything
to
else.
kick.
Yeah, I was taking
It's
20,
hard
30
to
a
kick.
day. They didn't believe me when I went to the rehab. They thought I was nuts, which I was, but my blood work showed that it was probably even worse than I thought. They said I'd
Mm,
probably be dead in a month if I didn't find my way there at that time. But
wow.
so I exchanged a behavior, which was sleep, and to go into meetings. I'd go to bars, and I'd stay up all night and do cocaine, and then go to work. So it was much more
Yeah.
healthy to go to a meeting at
There
night
you
than go
go.
out to eat with a bunch of AAs and then come. I would walk literally, 15, 18 blocks in Manhattan back to my apartment, and then I would read scripture till I closed my eyes at some point.
Mm,
And it turns out that was very healthy for me, and I was able to
yeah.
rebuild my life quickly. I found life to be easy, so I understand what you're saying, but I do believe that having a mentor like yourself, a counselor, a sponsor, whatever the word that
Yes.
people are comfortable with. When I went down to Wall Street, I said to a guy that helped me get in this program on Wall Street, I said, "What should I do? Give me some advice." He said, "Go find a rabbi." I said, "A rabbi? Like I'm Jewish. I'm thinking a rabbi." He says, "No, no, no. It just means a teacher, somebody that
Yeah.
is advanced in the business that can help guide you a
Mm,
little bit, because you're a smart kid. You'll figure everything out eventually, but you need somebody to just guide you a little bit so you don't waste too much time going in the wrong direction, etc." And
yeah.
and
Don't reinvent the wheel, right? There are people who've been successful. Figure out how they've been successful. If you, by the way, I
100%.
tell people all the time, and you sound like one of these guys. You would be surprised at how many people who are very successful, and I don't just mean money. They do what you want to learn how to do and have been doing it for a long time and are good at it, right?
Correct.
That could be exercise, that could be eating, that could be cooking, that could be art, that could be money, whatever it is. You would be surprised if you have the balls to reach out to some of these people and just say, "Hey, I really look up to what you're doing. I'd love to have 30 minutes of your time. I just want to pick, I'm really trying to start on this path." If they can't give you the 30 minutes, they'll direct you to somebody who can, or they'll give you something. At our core, I think most people, this was not my view before, but I think at our core, most of us who are successful at what we're successful at, we want to pay it forward. We want to help others. Just nobody fucking asks.
Well, let me just tell you something. So this is a perfect segue now. So early in my life, I was on Wall Street, and I would hit certain spots where I just couldn't get over a hump. Where doing 30,000, I'm earning 30,000 a month, and only 60, and I just, for like months, I get stuck in this. I couldn't go to another level, and I would knock on doors. I said, "Would you mind? Can I just sit here and listen to you on the phone?" Some guy said, "No, big deal. Next." And then a couple of guys said yes, and I would go sit in the guy's office, and I was told not to say a word. It had to be during a certain time of the day, end of the
Yeah.
day after the market closes. And Mike Cavanaugh, big shout out, bro. You changed my life. And
Mm.
I listened to guys how they handled themselves, how they conducted themselves, how they spoke on the phone to secretaries and assistants, and to guys that CEO of IBM, for instance. I mean, for real. And
Wow.
you know, uh, they helped me. They let me just take notes and sit in their presence. And I always say, go find somebody that's better and more than you. And it's a monkey see, monkey do world. If
Yeah.
if someone's willing to show you. Now, another thing I found about successful people is that we love to talk about ourselves. It's just part of a nature, especially in the vein of being helpful. So if I feel some guy comes to me and he wants to know, I'm happy to do it. Now, of course, I charge because it's become a business, and I got a
Sure.
million people calling me.
Sure.
I hung a shingle out a few online. I got
Yeah.
400 emails the first 12 hours. I was like, what the
Damn.
hell? But I say like this: it's the first time in human history, the first time in human history, and the only time where some kid anywhere in the world. If he wants more, he can get a hold of me. He can get a hold of
Yeah.
you. He can get a hold of
Yeah.
Bradley or Tony Robbins. There's a
Yeah.
way. Okay, I'm producing a movie based on a book called Blind Greed. I've agreed to produce a movie, and I was told that I
Nice.
had to get talent, and so we isolated some guy, who's now a brother, Michael Capon. What's shaking? He's going to play Larry Hartman. He's going to star and direct and co-produce it with me. He's made a lot of movies. He was one of the original Power Rangers. He was
Oh,
on
nice.
One Tree Hill. The kids all know that he's spent a lifetime in Hollywood, singer, dance, but he's an actor. And people say, "Well, how'd you get hooked up with Michael Capon?" Because now he's a full partner. He's actually part of Raw Media. We took Capon Films and
Oh,
merged
nice.
and Capon Studios. And I found him on Instagram, and
Mm.
I tell the story, and then he laughs. He goes, "Yeah." The guy DM'd me 45 days in a row, sometimes twice a day, 3 times a day, sending me videos. Eventually, I just reached back out and I said, you know, can I help you? And,
Yeah.
and so that's how I got Michael Capon, Capon Films,
Yep.
Capon Studios, and the ability to produce Blind Greed. Because for
Yeah.
45 days in a row, like some kid in Uruguay or China, all you need is a Wi-Fi connection and a phone, and
Yeah.
I found a guy and now we're partners in business. So somebody can reach out to you, and you're going to tell us in a minute how to get hold of you everywhere. Um, for the first time in human history, whatever you want,
Yeah.
whatever
Absolutely.
you want. If you're determined and you're serious minded, you can reach out to anyone. And I'm talking now to 7 billion, 8 billion people out there, potentially, obviously,
Yeah.
potentially. But never before in human history, I used to have to go knock on doors and,
But you
go
said the key. You said the key. You still have to be determined, right? Gary Vee talks about this all the time.
100%. You
Um,
can reach out to Gary Vee if you want, get a hold of him.
you can reach out to Gary Vee, but
Just so you know,
you better be willing to send him 100 messages before he gets back to you. Because if
that's what happens.
you know, and I think before we segue to how to get in touch again, like my hope all the time in interviews like this is if people never reach out to me, at least they got enough to get them to the next step in their own life.
And
This is your life.
you produce some great books, which
Thank you.
introduce a little bit of your program.
Yeah,
And I want you to send me one or two of them, and
I will 100%.
I will read them, and I will
It's in my
also,
notes.
I'd be happy to promote them because,
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Um, if you're listening right now and you're at any point struggling with any habits that you want to change, just remember, right? This is your life. Your life impacts all the people around you. There is nothing, not any amount of money, not the right clothes, the right bag, the right car, the right trip. There's nothing else that is more valuable than you investing in yourself
correct.
because everything else emanates from that. I've heard this. This is not, I'm not making this part up. I've borrowed it from many, many business coaches and executive coaches. You are the CEO of your own life more than the CEO of anything else in the universe. Even if you're the CEO of Apple right now, even if you're Tim Cook, you're first the CEO of your own life. You better be willing to have grit, determination, like Ross just talked about. If you want something, go fucking get it.
Go
And
get it.
like you said, Ross, if the first person says no, who cares? Go to the next one
Next,
and the next one
it's my
and the
favorite
next
word.
one.
It's my
Yeah,
favorite word in English, and I tell it's not only your life. This is not a dress rehearsal. There's no
no,
do-overs. There's no
no,
mulligans. And you are
no.
the star of your own life. What do you
Yes,
want your movie to be? You're the star of your life. Go get
literally,
it. Everything's
literally.
possible. How do we
Amen.
find you?
Amen.
Tell everybody.
So,
I want to know
um,
exactly how we can all reach out to you.
So for the book, we set up a website called readunhooked.com. You can check it
Okay?
out there. We're obviously on Amazon and all the other places that books are sold. Uh, a little fun fact, when I go to airports and I see my book on the shelves, I'll go sign some books
I
just
love
so
it.
that whoever ends up going by that book. So that's how you can find the book. I have a website called adjaffe.com if you want to
Say it
find
again.
me
Say it
individually.
again. A D
So
A
it's just
D
my first
I
and last name, ADIJAFFE
dot
dot
com.
com. Yep. All the stuff about me, speaking, coaching, all the other stuff over there. And then I will say, because we ended up talking about recovery a good bit. I have a company called Ignited, but it's IGNTD, Ignited with some vowels missing,
I love it.
IGNTD.com. And that is the program that offers all that kind of like virtual on your phone, super high touch. Like we're talking instead of $10,000 for rehab, we're talking like hundreds of dollars a month. Like I try to break all those barriers, right? It's easy to access, it's cheap, it's shame free, and it's harm reduction informed. So you
Is it
don't
like an
have to
app?
commit to abstinence when you
Is
come
it
in. It's
is
just
it like
literally an app. Yep.
it's like an app?
Literally an
Okay,
app.
perfect. It's an
It's,
app. So
yeah.
is it available in the App Store?
It's what's called a progressive web app. So you download it from the web and then
Okay,
it'll
very
download it to
cool.
your phone.
Very cool.
Yeah. Um, but it's all there to help people. And as we talked about with Ross, I get a lot of DMs, I get a lot of emails. If there's something you need, just reach out, and we're all about paying it forward.
And don't quit. Reach out,
Never quit.
Dr. D. Jaffe, Jaffe. What a privilege it is to get to know you today and to share this time. I want to
Yeah,
thank
thank you
you.
so much, Ross. I really love
I
this
thank
conversation.
you.
I appreciate it.